Hello and welcome back to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me today, we've got Jamison Maxwell. And Jamison, look, we've been doing a lot of build up to this ball game since Sunday, previewed the fair on Monday, then picked the game on Tuesday. But, we haven't done a proper preview with you on this one. So it's OU Texas. You got to get the most out of what you can. And we're going to take a look at this from the OU side because I feel like a lot of people have been talking about why Texas is going to win, why they're going to blow out the Sooners. But let's try to figure out, how do you think OU is going to win this game? What do you think the number one thing the Sooners need to do, the one advantage they have where they can possibly flip this game in their favor?
Are you tired of talking about OU Texas yet, Bobby?
Never.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
No, the week is so early. This is still holiday week. We're still vibing right now. Even if it's going to be a daunting task, like you said, we're going to have to really kind of micro look at this of how can OU find a formula to win this game. And if you want me to put it in one little bucket, obviously, it's going to have to start with the defense. And this defense is going to have to look like the best position group on this field, and they're going to have to dominate. And I think the formula, Bobby, is almost exactly what we did in the Tennessee game to start. If it looks like that versus Texas, and we can capitalize on opportunities of getting 3 and outs and turnovers, that's the success right there. That's how you do it.
Right. And I feel like OU's defense, really did put, the offense in positions to score. The problem is they just didn't do anything with it. They immediately turned it over. And if you can get a similar game like you got last year, where you're turning over Quinn Ewers, he has 4 turnovers, I believe, in his 2 Red River games. So he has been prone to do that. If you can do that and actually score, which I think the offensive ceiling is higher than we expect. All things considered, I think we've seen the floor, and that was a Tennessee game. I think the offense, with 2 weeks to prepare, to mix it up, is going to throw something at Texas that they haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and that's what you got to hope. And we've got the skill guys who've gone there and done that and made big plays. You think like Danny Stutzman with his goal line stands in the past year. Billy Bowman's been, always all over the field, turnover kind of guy in this game. We've got a lot of leadership, and we can look at Texas's offense as they're very skilled, they've got all these great guys, but the grand scheme of things, we've got a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball, Bobby, who have been there in this environment. They're used to it. They know what to expect. We can pull up Texas's offense. Isaiah Bond from Alabama, he's been in big games. He hasn't been to OU Texas. Matthew Golden hasn't been to OU Texas. Those are 2 of their best wide receivers. Jaden Blue, their best running back, he really hasn't been thrusted into significant play yet thus far for OU Texas, because he's been behind great running backs like Jonathan Brooks. So we have a lot of leadership on this defense and a lot of seniority to where you feel like they can go out there and at least punch them in the mouth, and some of these players who aren't ready for what OU Texas has to offer.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? 9 of the 11 starters have played in OU Texas before. So for OU on defense, which is big. And, you brought up Jaden Blue, which is, I think, something that a lot of people aren't talking about. Chris Eilenstein on Sunday said he's not really concerned about the running game because they average some 5 yards per carry, which is fine. They've been playing not the best competition. And Blue, to me, I feel like is kind of the weak point for the Texas offense. He was really fumble prone against Mississippi State. And it's kind of a running back by committee situation. Yeah, the offensive line is stellar for Texas, but I feel like if you can make that Texas offense one-dimensional, I think that's a huge advantage for the OU offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of trying to pick at a really damn good offense, their running back room is the weakest, but they've been running the ball, really well, yards per carry. Do not compare them to our running backs, Bobby. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. But if we're going to have to find a weakness of this, obviously you'd have to say the run game, because the passing game has looked really well. And Quinn Ewers has been a guy who can pick apart a defense and kind of sit back there calm, cool, and collected in the pocket. And I feel very confident about our run defense. I feel like we've caught a little bit of flack the past couple of weeks because of giving up bigger runs, especially to Auburn. And we kind of also heard it whenever Bowden Blake, an outsider, which is always good to hear, not in the bubble of Oklahoma, say like, oh, this defense seems to be falling off a little bit, giving up bigger runs. When it comes down to it, our run defense looks damn good if they've got oxygen in their lungs and their tissues and they're ready to go. Whenever they're gassed, of course, a team that's going to be gassed is going to give up the run. It's just not human to keep on stopping the run over and over and over. So, like the success of the defense is going to lean a lot on the offense this game.
Yeah. And can they stay on the field? Can they continue to sustain long drives? Can you avoid that back-breaking penalty on third down or, second, these penalties where you get a first down and it gets called back, stuff like that, which was, I think, like one of the reasons why it was so close against Auburn is you have these big chunk plays and then something happens and that Bauer Sharp, pass is wiped out, stuff like that. So if you can stay on the field, sustain drives, give this defense a break. First of all, I think the bye week is going to help the defense immensely. Getting a little bit of rest there, I think that's big time. But no, it's about the offense sustaining drives. Don't get the defense out on the field for 35 minutes. I think that gives them a chance to succeed and look like the defense we've seen. And they're damn good at full strength. I feel like it's the start and the end.
It's really, they just need to be helped. No one's going to be good if you're just like you're sitting there and you're having to take the brunt of everything. The offense hasn't done it for you. In the Auburn game, it was great getting that first big touchdown in the game. But the middle part of that game, not the ending, not the beginning, but the middle part, that's tough. That takes a toll. This is a 2.5, 3-hour football game. And in this Texas game too, Bobby, it's going to be hot out there. It's going to be hot. So people are going to get gassed and gassed early. So playing the game time of possession game is going to be so huge in terms of conditioning.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things where I feel like it's one of those games where the elements, you just kind of take them out because it's so emotional that you're so locked into the game that it's almost like you've got to not let that be a factor. And I don't know. I think that definitely is an aspect, but the sun will go down a little bit. It's gonna be hot to start, so we'll see how it goes. But definitely a game where the most emotional team that doesn't make mistakes. You need to ride that line,
And I think I said this on a past podcast episode about 2 weeks ago, but I kind of want to harp on it again. We see these flashes like kind of looping into our offense, Bobby, of like what Michael Hawkins could be. And you've always harped on like he hasn't made the mistakes, which is a big thing. But like we see big flash plays, but then we see a couple of dud things because he doesn't get a lot of opportunity. Now, I expect the offense from what we know as watching this team as Sooner fans should be a little bit noticeably different come Saturday, because this is not Jackson Arnold's offense anymore. Whenever it comes down to Michael Hawkins, completely different player. And if you keep that same playbook that you had for Arnold as your presumed starter, that is not going to unlock his true potential. So I would figure now with this bye week, you've had a lot of time. You've had 2.5, 3 weeks now worth of time to go out there and make a better play calling scheme for a running quarterback to go out there and eat.
Right. And I feel like that's the biggest thing. If the offense looks like it has, it's not going to be a good day for OU. You've got to change it. You've got to shift. I know Seth Luttrell is one of the most stubborn OCs we've run into in a while, but you've got to adapt the system to fit Michael Hawkins and to fit the guys you'll be able to play in terms of your wide receivers, who you're going to get back, the Zions, the JJ Hesters, like find a game plan that works for that, not for what you expected this offense to be entering 2024. Having the time to do that instead of scrambling and trying to piece it together like a box of scraps before Auburn, I think that time is going to be so beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if it comes down to, if I'm like kind of looking at this, how much is like, oh, we're going to put him in designed quarterback runs, which I think that should be your answer, because I think we need to get outside of the tackles and kind of open up the defense as much as we can here, because what we've seen so far early on this season, as we have no respect in our deep pass game, and also our run game has been also really, the defense are not giving any respect for it, that these defenses are like kind of pinching and squishing right in the middle. So if we can get Hawkins at least on the outside, do like a little read option or like a quick pitch. I don't know how he is as a pitcher, to where we can get outside the tackles, open up the defense, show a little bit of respect to outside the tackles. That hopefully would stop that little pinch and kind of spread out the field and give more opportunities for hopefully, our tight ends and wide receivers in the middle of the field to get more room to make plays.
Right. And I feel like, spreading it out, respecting the wide receivers is going to be important, because I feel like they're going to sell out to stop the run, which is fair. You can just to see, guys like Hill, who, that running or that linebacking core Texas has is really good. And I feel like they're going to be really good at limiting the running game, especially if they're keying in on it. So it's one of those, do you establish the pass by running the ball successfully, or do you establish running the ball? I think
you got to run the ball
by passing. Yeah.
I think you got to run the ball. You got to play the ball, and you got to win the time of possession battle. And that's going to be via running. And if we're going to do a lot of quarterback runs and it's going to absolutely tear Michael Hawkins to pieces, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. You just got to put your foot on the gas here. And we kind of look at this Texas defense, right? And you look at the defensive line, and obviously everyone's going to point to, losing two big-time defensive tackles, Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, and how it is. I mean, they've filled in nicely with guys, but it's like they lost a lot of talent as of last year. They're still a very good team, but this is not the level of skill on this defensive line that the Sooners had to wrangle with last year. So I'm hoping that this offensive line, now that they have continuity, can at least get more in the run game and the run blocking scheme than we've seen so far this season.
Yeah, and I think that, the D-line is good. Like, Texas did a really good job of recovering from, the amount of guys they lost last year. But that being said, it's one of those things where I feel like they've, I feel like, to me, they've, they're not the same guys. I don't think they're on that same level. They did it against a kind of patchwork Michigan offensive line, and that's fine. That was not a very good offense at all. But I think that if you had to pick out a relative weakness in the Texas defense, it would definitely be on that O-line, or sorry, D-line. I think they're solid. But they're not
even
the
linebackers too, Bobby. Like, we put a lot of stock in Anthony Hill, but this guy's still a sophomore. He's super, super athletic. But big games, in youth, anything's possible. We've seen some of the most talented youth throughout the whole season. The guys that we've just clamored about. You're not going to be perfect throughout the season. So I think there's a lot of guys that are new in these positions that are very, very skilled. Vernon Broughton, Alfred Collins. We already talked about Anthony Hill. That are guys that are really good, but they haven't been the guy yet thus far. We don't see 2-3 year starters on this defense in terms of these front 7, front 8. So I'm really excited to see how that goes. And I think this offensive line, Bobby, I am trying to feed some optimism here. I really am, because you would like to say that our offensive line has been so poor because we've had no time to get respite and some continuity. And we've gotten both of that now over the span of 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, and I don't think it makes them like a Joe Moore award-winning unit by any means, but I think it makes them better than what they have been. And look, I mean, hell, even last year, and I think last year's line was a little bit better given, the personnel, but last year, the O-line kind of came together when we thought they were going to be a massive liability against Texas, and they kind of strung together a good performance. I think that this O-line, having a couple weeks to prepare, they don't have to be perfect, but they just have to be good enough,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, we talk about how this team needs to have success in the run game, but in all honesty, even with this hobbled offensive line, they've done pretty decent in pass pro. So, I mean, I was hoping that we'd have the injury report. Have you seen the injury report yet? Where this is Wednesday at 7:30. I haven't seen it yet. I was trying to scramble around for it. I haven't seen it. I'm kind of disappointed. That's why I wanted to record today so we could get the injury report. Maybe it's out and I just haven't seen it. But have you seen it yet?
No, I think we
Okay,
probably ended up podcasting too early. I think
that
it's probably
sucks.
coming out tonight.
Whatever. But I mean, like, just kind of breaking down. I heard you had an injury segment on the episode, but I mean, like, I kind of broke it down a little bit in the past. Like Taylor Tatum, coming back for this run game, you figure he would because it's concussion protocol, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'd feel pretty good
Right.
about that. And then Deion Burks, they said he had like an oblique abdominal injury, so that I saw on like message board. So is this going to be to the level of the severity where it's like Nico Collins just got one in the NFL and he's on IR right now out for 4 weeks. I feel like if that would have been the case, I feel like it wouldn't have gotten strung out as much, to tell you the truth. I feel like it'd be like he's going to be out for a significant amount of time. This might be more like the abdominal injury that Quinn Ewers had, to where maybe it's like an out a week or two. And, Texas analysts are saying that he probably could have came back on Mississippi State, but they just kept it safe to where maybe we could get back Deion Burks. His personality, Bobby, just from what we've seen thus far, and I understand he's been frustrated, I just don't see him as a guy who's just going to lay down and quit this team and not play in this big game, because he understands how pivotal for him and his stock for money wise in NIL and draft stock as a possible guy could go into the league this year versus come back for another year, of how big it is to play well in these games, especially when you're playing the number one team in the country.
Well, yeah, I mean, you transferred to Oklahoma so you can have moments like this, so you can play at OU Texas, so you can play teams like, the number one ranked Longhorns. You come for the moment, and whether or not he'll be effective, I think he'll be out there. You know what I mean? It could be, Lord have mercy, like just put him out there as like a decoy if you need it, if it's really that bad. But
Dude, I'll take
I think
whatever
he'll be
you
out there.
got, Bobby,
Yeah,
at the wide receiver position. Because, man, we keep throwing in like, oh, Zion Reagans, if he's just going to do something. Zion Kearney, we just need it. We're putting in a lot of stock to some young guys. When it comes down to it at the wide receiver position, we really need Deion Burks to get into the middle of the field and get us some first downs on those third and longs that we're going to inevitably get into. Like this offense with a young quarterback with a little bit of a poor offensive line and a run game that hasn't been established, we're going to get in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9s. We need a guy who can get that, and that is what Deion Burks can do. But on the other side of that coin, Bobby, like you talk about the other wide receivers and who could step up and be that guy. J.J. Hester in the Auburn game became a guy that you really thought, I never thought he could do this, right? And he did it. Brennan Thompson has got to turn it on for this game. We need a 70-plus yard touchdown from Brennan Thompson. If they're squeezing that defense, like I said earlier, we've got to see something from him. We haven't seen it yet.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Thompson's speed and everything, like if there's a guy who can take the top off, it's him. And of course, I mean, like talk about quite a moment there, to say the least. So you would have to hope that Brennan Thompson could be a pretty big factor here, and he kind of has to be. And when it comes to big plays, like he's got to be it for sure.
Yeah, and we don't really have much of an option. When we talked on the weekend spread about this game, Bobby, we talked about ways that Oklahoma could do this to cover the spread. We're kind of focusing on how can Oklahoma win this game. And there's got to be a lot of things that go our way. We talk about winning the time of possession. We say maybe get a couple of turnovers, but also you can't just do all these things and not score touchdowns. And we need big plays. I think this is the way that this team will function, is if you watch this game versus Auburn, the way we scored were because of big plays, whether that the J.J. Hester throw or that Michael Hawkins run, or getting a short field position. We need big plays, because I don't think this offense is sculpted out to be a team that can just chip away slowly but surely, create a 16-play drive and knock it into the end zone. I don't believe that we have the consistency to do that. I think that we need to get big chunk plays, especially whenever defenses aren't respecting us, and go out there and take the momentum in a big game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. We haven't really seen the long drive yet, have we? With Hawkins,
we haven't seen many drives.
We have not.
The meaningful ones, because Tennessee
drives.
took their foot off the gas, Bobby. So it's kind of hard to take too much into that one, right? They were kind of giving up. So, but with Auburn, we didn't really see it too much. Maybe that one play or the one drive where we got Javonte Barnes in for like the 2 or 3 yard touchdown. But that wasn't the longest drive, right? I'm gonna pull up the receipts while you talk.
Yeah, and I mean they had a couple. I feel like the longest drives ended up in field goals. Really, they just couldn't finish them. Either due to penalties or just getting stagnant towards the end. But they haven't yet really done it consistently, to say the least.
Yeah, so I'm just breaking things down. So first touchdown drive that we had, Bobby, 4 plays, 68 yards. We understood that. That was the big Michael Hawkins run. Then you gotta wait for a while because we don't have any touchdowns all the way until the 1 minute 40 mark in the third. And that was another 4 play drive for 67 yards. We get the JJ Hester 60-yard play. And so we didn't get. Am I missing a touchdown here? Oh, I missed in the Kip 6. So yeah. So in terms of an offensive drive thing, they were all big plays. It was a turnover, it was a big run, and it was a big pass. So I think we need more of that if we want to go out and score enough points. That Texas offense, no matter how much we talk about, I hope Quinn Ewers can throw an interception. I hope maybe we could get a strip for a guy that he's a little bit nervous about his abdomen. Maybe, just maybe, our defense can show out and get some 3-and-outs. Grand scheme of things, the way this Texas offense is, the amount of skill they have, and the way that Quinn Ewers has showed to be grown as a quarterback from what I saw at the beginning of the season, they're going to score points. It's inevitable. They're going to get 20-plus points, even on the best of defenses. We've got to go out and make big plays.
Yep, no doubt. No doubt. The offense has to give them something. It can't just be a loop of a bunch of Kip 6s to win the ball game. The offense will have to show out in ways it hasn't so far this season.
Do you got a big X factor? Because I feel like we've done that every year, and I didn't get to listen to the pod that you had on Sunday, but did you guys talk X factors for Oklahoma?
We actually did not. We did not.
Really? That's like a tradition of like the
Yeah.
hero. We always talk about the hero, right? And we said Drake Stoops was a popular answer for his years here at Oklahoma. But like, and obviously I think maybe Brennan Thompson, we tried to name drop last year. But who do you think could be a hero this year?
It feels too corny to say. I mean, I don't want to go ahead and say Michael Hawkins because that seems obvious. Yeah. Oh, true freshman starting quarterback. Like
other than the quarterback
from OU. Like, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and say Danny Stutzman. Yeah. I feel like this is last Red River game for him. A guy who has obviously done a lot of talking. This is a moment to really back it up and really put an emphasis on a career at OU. And I feel like we could have a big Danny Stutzman moment here. Big turnover, big something like that. I mean, last year, but maybe that's a little too obvious. Last year, I feel like it was like Ethan Downs, career moment out of nowhere. So I don't know. It's hard to find one right now that I can immediately
Jamison Thomas, maybe the way he's been playing recently. Maybe you could start putting something together earlier in the games. I do wonder, though. I really do wonder, Bobby, with Jamison Thomas, and I think I mentioned this on past, is like he shows up in the fourth quarter because it's obvious passing downs and he can just go, and he's just so gifted as a pass rusher that he doesn't even have to worry about it. And maybe we don't see it as much earlier in the game because there's still a little bit of indecisiveness in his brain. It's like, I can't go all out because I could get absolutely burned in the run. And that's a really, really hard game to play as an edge rusher. But, that guy's got talent, dude. Could he get to Quinn Ewers and strip sack him? Absolutely. And I've been talking about him as an X factor for the season, where I would love to see him do that in this game.
And not only that, but like Texas's run game being a concern, they're probably going to be more downs where you expect them to pass because that's what Texas does best. So maybe just let them rip. I don't know. Like, I think that's a really good bet right there.
Yeah, I love that. That's what I'm going to go for. And then the offensive side of the ball, I kind of already hinted at it. We got to have a Brennan Thompson long touchdown. We've got to, man. If it's not Brennan Thompson, it's got to be, JJ Hester, because I don't know if I believe in anyone else to get a long touchdown, pending. Even if we're going to throw a deep ball to Deion Burks, which we didn't even do whenever he's healthy, right? So, it's got to be one of those two. And, Brennan Thompson, with being a former Texas guy, he's got some of the fans doubting him and whatnot for obvious reasons. But we know what he does best. Straight line speed, outrun you, get atop of the defense. And the defenses, I won't be surprised at all if whenever we're first on the field, Bobby, you look at those safeties, watch those safeties and see how much disrespect that they're going to throw towards our wide receiver room. Screw it. Let's do a deep ball right off the bat.
Yeah, I like it. 1982 brought up a good one. Billy Bowman, feels like could be a solid moment, little
Man,
a couple
he's
Billy
been
pick
so
sixes.
impressive this season, Bobby. Like he just looks so much smarter than everyone on the field. He's just been around the block and like he's like making plays whenever you think that, oh God, we're about to lose. Like, they're gonna get 8 yards on us. Billy Bowman moves right into the gap, 2-yard game. It's so valuable. He's made so many valuable plays that you just don't see on the box score.
Yeah, I mean, he really is just one of the sharpest and just fast, quick, decisive, making the right reads. Like it's absurd. Be like, oh, how did he get there? How did he get there that fast from all the way over there? One just incredible, hell of a player to say the least. So, yeah. Well, okay. So we've given our heroes. What do we think about this game? Like, how do we want to wrap a bow on this? The final preview. What's the last word on OU Texas 2024?
Well, I think a unique thing here in Schooner Pod lore is usually we don't give like predictions for the game of how like we think the score is going to be and all that stuff because we save it for the weekend spread, right? We do our little game preview and then we save it for our weekend spread so we don't go into too much depth. We've already recorded the weekend spread episode. So if you want to go listen to a really stellar slot of games that we have this weekend, man, we're going over 10 of them. So go listen to that episode. But in terms of prediction for scores, Bobby, I think that we should just go ahead and do it and just put ourselves, expose ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Let's do it. Let's put it out there. This is just going off the dome thinking about it. I think it's going to be a bit more of a slugfest than people expect. I think it trends similar in a way to the Tennessee game. Because I think that the Texas offense, I get that they've done a good job replacing guys. And I had this point on the Sunday show. Chris and Ty kind of got on me about saying Texas, I don't think they're as good as they were last year. Look, Gabe and Teddy on Oklahoma Breakdown, they said the same thing. They don't think Texas's offense is as good. They lost a lot of guys, and I could see this being a defensive battle.
I don't think that's a bad take at all, Bobby.
Thank you. This is why we have you on, Ty. Jamison.
That was a team that made the college football playoffs top 4, and I don't care if they lost in the semis. Like that team was stellar. Like you just go down like Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, JT Saunders, Jatavian Saunders. Like they don't have those guys anymore. I understand you have Gunnar Helm, Matthew Golden, and
Isaiah Bond.
Yes, Isaiah Bond. I almost said DeAndre Moore, but I don't think I was going to put him in that top 3. But like those are not equivalent to those guys. You don't have Tavondre Sweat. You don't have Byron Murphy. There's a lot of skill on this team that they don't have anymore.
Yeah, and I think that is an impactful thing. And I don't know. I think it's a tight game. I'm gonna go. Screw it. I'm going to go Oklahoma. Oklahoma 31. Oklahoma 31, Texas 28.
I knew by doing this, you would pick an Oklahoma win, and I've just therefore cornered you into putting in a score.
Tyler Keltner game-winning field goal, all-time classic, OU Texas.
God. Now that's a talk. Like, I think Keltner still goes out there, but am I ready to just think that Schmidt should get the start?
Now that would be talking about legends, being made if Schmidt hit a game-winning field goal after everything we've talked on him somehow. Like that's an all-time redemption moment right there for you. So
I think Keltner should get the start because I don't think there's any way, shape, or form that this coaching staff benches him because he had to get his appendix removed. Like, can you imagine? You're like, I've made my way. I transferred here to Norman. I won the starting job. I've done all my hard work in the offseason. And then I get appendicitis. I have to get my appendix removed and I lose my starting job.
There's no way. There's no way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, you feel like he's going to be fine. It's not going to be like he feels like sword where like he can't kick. This is like a little laparoscopic surgery. It's not some big incision in his stomach. He'll be fine. He'll be fine to do it. But man, I mean, a Tyler Keltner game-winning field goal, I'm going to be honest, I would be so nervous. I'd be so nervous if you went out there, because I just would think about the times where we put kickers out there and it's just gone wrong. Like, Gabe Burkich, even though, we got the win that game in the quadruple overtime, but like, it's so hard to believe in field goals in that game. Doubt. I think here's my score prediction, and I picked Oklahoma to cover this game, but I think we're going to still struggle on the offensive side of the ball. I think we're going to get a couple good big plays. I think we'll get one big play touchdown. I think that we'll get one really good defensive stop, short field, and we'll kind of punch it in, and then a field goal. But I think that's it. I think we get 17 points. I think Texas gets 31. We lose by 14. I think that's just, honestly, we cover the spread. If we can put up and show some life on this offensive side of the ball, it's going to be disappointing we lost to Texas, Bobby, because all we want to do is win this game. But if we can show some life for the rest of the season, whenever you play the number one team in the nation, at least we can have a little bit of optimism moving forward that we're not going to be a team where we're worried about even making a bowl.
Right. And if you can show some fight against Texas, that's big time. And it's funny, that was Chris Eilenstein's exact score prediction, 17-31 Texas. Or 31-17 Texas. So
I wouldn't be surprised if the over-under, let me look it up, Oklahoma, Texas over-under is right around there too, to where like that's kind of the odds favorite for it. So the over-under is 50.5. So by that score would be just around the prediction that Vegas has. We're a 14.5 point dog, and it's a 50.5 point spread. So that's plus or minus the easiest pick in the book. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I'm riding with my homer pick. I'm just calling it what it is, because I'm optimistic. I want to pick the Sooners here. I think Quinn Ewers, if given the chance to beat the Sooners, he's going to do it, of course. But that's just tough. So
Bobby is our resident gooner. He tries to act like he is a sophisticated man, but he has been our resident gooner, and we all know this.
I should have trended more towards sophistication, because last year I acted all sophisticated and we ended up winning. I just want to be on the right side of history.
Never, ever, ever a fun time whenever, like, obviously we care a lot about our picks on this podcast because it's fun and you want to win. You don't want to be a loser. But at the same time, you do not want to be in the Cotton Bowl being like, well, there's an internal hedge here. Maybe I did predict this right and I feel good. But no, screw that. It's not fun. No. Even if I don't know and feel the most confident in Oklahoma covering the spread, screw it.
Yeah, fair. All right. Well, that's all we have for today's show. Thank you all so much for watching our coverage all week long. If you want to hear more of it, haven't missed or haven't seen them all, we got a nice little playlist for you in the YouTube. And look, if you're listening on your podcast app, just scroll down. We got the shows there as well on your feed. But thank you all so much for watching and listening. We will be back. We'll be back on Sunday to talk about the results of this game. God help us all. We'll see how the Sooners turn out. But, hoping we're talking about a surprising win, but you never know. But until then, thank you all so much for watching. Boomer Sooner, everybody. Beat Texas.